Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. So glad to be in the creating corner of comics creator Daniel Henriques. And you were just telling me that in Portuguese, your name has a completely different pronunciation. Would you like to share that?
Yes, the sound is a little bit different. And if you're going to try and say it in Portuguese, it will be Daniel Henriques. So again, just a little bit of a different sound to it, but Daniel Henriques is fine. Whenever I go to shows there, it's what I'm accustomed to. Actually, the first time that when I started working on Ronin and then Didio introduced me and Philip Tan as the creative team on that, he
Hmm.
called me Daniel Hendricks. So you did a lot better.
I try. Yeah, I have a fair number of students in my class that speak Spanish or different languages, and so I try to translate what I can because I'm monolingual, unfortunately. And I know that when I'm sharing things in Spanish, especially Google Translate, I also have students who speak Portuguese, and so I know that they're doing their best to sort of make sense of it as well. But very cool. And I wanted to try it in Portuguese, but I also did not want to butcher the sounds as well. So glad to have you, and I'll shout out once more the creative space that you're in, seeing lots of wonderful action figures there. Looks like some characters that you actually spend some time with in your creative
True.
work, as well as a lovely collection of books around you at the moment.
I try to keep it cozy with the stuff that inspires me,
Hmm.
or as my wife calls it, junk that collects dust.
Right. Yes, yeah. So I know folks out there will know you for a wide variety of work in the DC universe. You have a long run on Aquaman, and then there's also been this wonderful thing that's happened with Spawn in the past few years of sort of expanding the Spawn universe into King Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn. I really enjoy Gunslinger, and also King Spawn is really interesting. And then I know that there's this like project that isn't there. There aren't a lot of details released about No Home Here yet, so I won't
No.
ask you to spoil anything. But just shouting out the work that you're doing in that universe as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it because that, especially No Home Here is a special one because, in to take it back a little bit, I
Mhm.
actually got into comics because of Todd McFarlane and Spawn. That was like my inspiration to like want to be a comic book artist, and that's even why I because the majority of my career has been as an inker. And I, because early on, as most kids, we start drawing. Like kids have no idea what an inker or colorist is. There's only art,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
specialized in inking with the dream of one day going to Spawn and maybe working over with Todd, which is like inking for me is in my mind, it was the best collaborative medium
Hmm.
possible for me to be able to work with the artists that I looked up to. Little did I know at the time that again, Todd doesn't have any inkers or any of that. But again, it led me on this path, and like you mentioned before, I worked majorly at DC for most of my career. A lot of time with Brian Hitch and with Robson Rocha on Aquaman and other projects. But
Hmm.
I always had my eye set on Spawn because that's what really made me want to, like I said, be an artist. And I had the chance even to ink some stuff. I inked some stuff on Spawn. I helped here and there, and I'm very happy that No Home Here is my. It's a different thing because I'm writing. Everything is done by me and Jonathan Glapion, which is like a really, really good friend of mine. We're co-creating everything together. He's
Hmm.
doing the entirety of the art from pencils, inks, and colors, and I'm doing the writing. And we're creating this really cool world because, like you said, Spawn is expanding a lot. You had Spawn, then King Spawn, the Scorch, Gunslinger. I think there's 10 titles, new titles coming in 2024.
Hmm.
Some ongoing series, a lot of mini series. There's some really cool stuff coming. And the fact that Todd is trusting, because Jonathan, like myself, the majority of his career has been as an inker. So this is his jump into a different venue as well, doing the majority of all of the art, not the majority. So the fact that Todd is trusting us to do this, it's really really cool.
Very cool indeed. And when I saw that, I think it was Comic Book Reporter where I first saw it, 10 new titles, and just this idea of like something that I've loved since I think it was 92 when Spawn debuted,
Yep.
continuing to grow and expand. It's very exciting. And as I mentioned, I've enjoyed these new directions. So curious to see what you have in store with No Home here. Um, very much so.
Well, on No Home here, and again, like you said, we can't really speak much about it because
Hmm.
issue one would open with big spoilers right away that we don't want to give away. What I
Hmm.
can say about it, because we came up with a totally like original idea, like I said, but me being a fan of Spawn, because there's a lot of people who read it when it came out and was this big image thing, and then there's a lot of kind of dropped it because Spawn is
Hmm.
going on 350 issues.
Yeah.
I still buy Spawn to this day. I go to my local comic book store and they have it on standing order forever as Spawn is coming out. Since for me, it's one of those things. It was so influential that it will always be in my standing orders. So I know the story, and there's certain stuff that I've always wondered. And I never really tried to pitch or anything as far as writing goes, because, like I said, I was just inking. So it's almost even afraid almost of taking a step in another direction. But I've been creating my own stuff in wondering about a lot of stuff. And one of them was there's a really, really important story in the Spawn mythology, which is on issue 5, the debut of this villain, this serial killer, Billy Kincaid.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I always liked it. And he's shown up through the story quite a few other times as well. But uh, he there it only I was trying to remember, it only shows up I think in one page, 3 or 4 panels, this little girl called Shirley Johnson, and he just kind of like takes her away and she dies. That's it. She appears and she dies. It was his final victim. And I
Yeah.
always wondered, what happened to her? This is Spawn. There's heaven, there's everything, there's all kinds of stuff, characters that do all kinds of stuff. What happened to her? And the story picks up there.
Oh,
She's
cool.
one of 2 main characters. She's Shirley Johnson. Like I mentioned, she has a new look right now, and that's why we can't speak a lot about it. If you go like to my social media, that kind of stuff, that it's pinned there. She has again a completely different look, and the story opens with her reliving her death over and over and over again. We don't know
Oh,
why,
wow.
what's going on. It's not the most pleasant of things, let's say, because again, her last moments on Earth were at the hands of Billy Kincaid, and then
Yeah.
something happens, and there's the introduction of a new character that we're calling the Stranger, and that's going to ignite things moving and change things moving forward with those 2 characters. That's kind of the only thing that we're saying at the moment about what's going on.
Wow. Now,
It's totally new, but connected in some aspects to Spawn mythology.
and you said a couple of things there that I really appreciate. One of which is you've been following the series since it debuted, and so you have this insider knowledge. It's not like you've had to backtrack and sort of follow up the mythology. Which shout out to authors that do that, as opposed to just sort of trying to invent and do their best. But very cool that you followed along and noticed those paths. And then creating something that's going to be part of this mythology that must be rewarding in its own right as a longtime fan.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's amazing. I still find it hard to believe that Todd entrusted us with this because again, and Jonathan Glapion, my co-creator, he's even more linked to Todd than me because again, I've been a fan, but Jonathan actually started his career with Todd on
Mhm,
Sam and
mhm.
Twitch and all kinds of stuff, back in the 90s, I believe. So he's even more connected to Spawn and Todd in that way. So in the designs that he's been making and what he's been doing on in these pages, it's just been mind blowing. And we both talk about it because again, we started on this universe to a certain degree as a fan, then professionals, and now to actually be able to create on it, it's really good because Todd is actually incentivizing us to just like do our own stuff. He never wanted.
Nice.
First of all, there was no like interference at all with the process.
Mhm.
Both Todd and Thomas Healy, the editor that coordinates all of this and helps us with all of this, have been incredibly hands off to a certain degree. Of course, they'll be there if something is not right, but they're really not just allowing but incentivizing us to really explore these new paths.
So kind and so awesome. And I know that there are creators that are very proprietary. That's how you say that. Very protective, very sort of regimented, but also cool that within this universe, Todd has this creative freedom that he allows people to be part of as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably comes a little bit even like his story and how him and the other artists created image and everything. I mean, to a certain degree, of course, this is, Spawn's Todd's baby. He will have, if something is messing with his mythology, I think they would say it.
Hmm.
Maybe we didn't have a lot of interference because I know the universe pretty well, so I didn't do anything to break it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So maybe that helps a little bit and not um, having a lot of notes, let's call like that. I heard because when I'm working, I have like interviews and podcasts in the background. I heard an interview recently with John Layman, I think it's the name, that's writing the Scorch right now, and he was
Hmm.
talking about how Todd will come in and change some dialogue if necessary, and it's not even necessary out of being wrong or anything. It's just because it's his book and he kind of knows what's going on. And
Yeah.
again, I haven't had those issues per se, and I don't see it as an issue. Again, it's totally okay. That would happen in any other big company. But I did find it funny because again, Todd gives it complete creative freedom, but at the same time, I think he's very well aware of what's happening within his universe.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Absolutely. And I am now picturing your own action figures of characters that you're co-creating around you as well, which I'm sure will be its own kind of cool thing when that happens. Not if it happens, but I'm sure it'll happen.
Right, well, fingers crossed. Again, me and Jonathan also talk about that. Right now, we're just completely, wanting to do our very best. But again, I would be lying if we say we don't talk about it or like daydream about it. And again, speaking again of interviews that I listened to one of Zé Carlos. He's doing this, pronouncing saying his name in Portuguese. He's the
Mhm.
one. He's the artist on Rat City, being written as well by Erica Schultz. Apologies if I butchered the name. But I saw an interview with him recently too, where again, what he says was like, "I hope this character gets turned into an action figure." I mean,
Right.
I think we all want it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and Todd McFarlane knows how to do comics and action figures and all the things.
uh,
So, yeah.
we're in good hands.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, you also have a fellow collaborator that I talked with right before the holiday. That was Philip Tan. And so I always like to ask about those positive connections, positive collaborations, any additional voices that you would shout out there that you've worked with and found to be really generative and positive.
I've been very lucky in my career because a lot of inkers, a lot of times we're just thrown into projects. We don't even speak with anybody. It's like, here's this page, ink this page, or here, go to that book, and there's no communication a lot of times. Especially if you're at Marvel or DC, it's a little bit of a production factory. It
Hmm.
can happen. I've been very lucky that that never really happened to me. I had two or three steady collaborators for years. I worked for many years with Brian Hitch, which it was at the very beginning of my career, so it was very, very intimidating and really hard. His work is really not easy to be able to meet deadlines with, let's call it like that, because it's very intricate. But he was really great, not just in the work. We had a lot of communication. He had great tips, even how to conduct myself as a freelancer. He helped me a lot grow as an artist as well. Then right after Brian, I worked with Robson Rocha for many years as well, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years back. But we worked together for quite a bit as well, and that was a great relationship. It also really helped me like growing to my own thing as an artist. And right now with I'm working more with Philip, which has been really good and crazy to a certain degree. Because when we started talking a couple of years ago, we talked about working together, and I would be okay with working in whatever. But very shortly after, he tells me, "Oh, I'm talking with Frank Miller, to possibly do a sequel to Ronin. Would
Uh-huh,
you
uh-huh.
also want to do that?" And I was like, "Well, yes, please." And it was very different from anything that we have done so far. Because
Yeah.
Philip is a big fan of manga as well, and so am I. So we even introduced because like I said, Philip already had that gig before we started talking, and he had done some samples where he was doing like his detailed style, and he was using kind of some washes and some stuff. And when I came aboard, just me and him before me coming aboard, we talked about, hey, let's do some experiments with zipatone and all of that, which I never used. I like it. I had never used. And we did 2 images just for fun. We sent Philip sent it to Dandidio and Frank, and they loved it. And I got brought on board, and that turned into the style of of what the book became. So
Mhm.
it's kind of crazy. There was a lot of experimenting to it, but it's really cool. It's intimidating too because now I'm the last in line per se as far as the artwork goes. Usually, I still had a colorist, so even I don't want to say if there was mistakes or something, but I always knew there was somebody enhancing it further after
Mhm.
me. Right now, it ends with me, so there's more pressure.
I never thought about that part of the process, but yeah, that would add a little bit of pressure for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're the person hitting that final submit button. Um,
right.
and also
Yeah,
just oh, go ahead, sorry. Oh, were you going to add anything there?
the colorist, but Frank, he sees the work. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, Frank Miller is getting to see and approve the work. So no pressure there.
Hmm.
But it's been really cool too. We had like a lot of eventually I've met him in person, and but we had like some Zoom meetings and everything. It was really, really cool. Also very hands off as far as it goes. The whole process, even with Frank, is different because he's not sending a script to Philip. He's sending layouts, and then Philip will draw his version of it, and then I ink and zipatone it. So even on there, it's already different, but it's really cool. And it also led to me actually inking Frank Miller because
Yeah.
issue 4 was me doing, and not just inking, but doing finishes, which is even more. I had like to draw some, add everything from shadows, textures, speed lines, everything over Frank's layouts for issue 4, which that also felt like, geez, is this happening?
Right.
And I was like, in my head, I was even, I'm not sure I want to do this. I don't want to be the guy who ruined Frank's work and then be, called names online. But ultimately, again, Frank is just like so nice, and I would never like lose that opportunity. And it worked really well. Frank really liked the work. For me, it was a really fun process, and the response to it seems to have been nice. So it's been pretty fun.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Todd McFarlane, Frank Miller, Philip Tam, Brian Hitch. I mean, you've worked with a range of people and worked on some very notable characters. Curious about what's on the creative agenda. Any spaces that you'd like to create in at this point, or folks that you'd like to collaborate with?
Um, as far as even folks that I'd like to collaborate with, I mean, I think so in the sense of, because again, I plan on writing some more. I'm really enjoying it. I've been writing for many years,
Hmm.
just afraid to share it. Now that that door opened a little bit, I want to do more of it. I'm as my biggest collaborator at the moment per se, as far as creativity goes, it has to be Jonathan Glapion, because again, what we're doing on this, we're on the phone every day. We speak from layouts to me writing to like everything. So it's a very involving process, and it's really nice. We already even done other stories and stuff that we like to do after this, so we already have a lot of stuff planned. It just again takes time. As I'm discovering, it's faster to write than it is then to draw the pages. So Jonathan is still, like working on this. But I mean, I would like, as far as my own, because I'm still inking. I'm not stopping inking. I'm working with Frank still. I'm working with Philip still, and I'm doing the writing on here. I'm drawing some stuff. I do some covers here and there for Todd as well. So I want to draw a bit more. I want to be able to do a bit more covers because I want to write more in terms of some short stories that I did. I would be able to feel, I want to feel comfortable to illustrate them and, maybe put it up on my website or something, even almost as a way of giving back to, because I've been very fortunate, with everybody that supported my work. So that is something I would very much like to do as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the website, so that was going to be my last official question, and then we can hit anything that we might have missed. So, curious about where people can go to follow the process, to find out more about No Home Here and other work to come, social media spaces, websites, anything of that nature that
Mm.
you find helpful.
The website is danielhenriques.art. Somebody had taken danielhenriques.com already. So danielhenriques.art. And it has all of my social media on there. I'm now starting to, like, in the process of actually getting my newsletter and everything working properly to be able to spread the news a lot better. And then I'm more active on Instagram, I would say, but I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. That's, again, the easiest places to follow me, but all of the links to that are on the website as well. And because I will be sharing a lot more, which is, even the social media now, it's a fun thing, because for a long time I do some inks, I post some inks, I might post a cover that also had, the colorist and everything. I'll tag everybody. It's really fun. Now, as I'm writing No Home Here, I
Mhm.
also get to share some of the art that Jonathan is doing, which is kind of, it might sound like a very small thing, but it's very new to me. I'm sharing other artists on my own page that it's almost like your online portfolio. So it's something that I'm really, really enjoying doing, being able to share all of this. And we will be announcing hopefully soon when it comes out, because none of these books for Todd they all have their dates. None have been announced yet, but hopefully we'll be able to announce soon. Again, I will advise people to also follow Jonathan Glapion for news on No Home Here, because that's coming. And right now, I'm also still finishing the last issue of Ronin, this Ronin book 2 with Frank. There's only one issue left to come out, and so that will be coming too. It comes out in February.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate all that you're creating in the world. And again, just wonderful that you sort of followed these worlds, that you're truly an insider in the world of comics and adding to the story and adding to the mythology. Anything that we missed that you want to make sure to shout out?
I don't think so. I will just very briefly even mention, because I don't think this happens a lot of time, because I mentioned all of these collaborations and all of this, and I mentioned Jonathan and what I'm doing with him. But the fun thing about all of that is, because I've known Jonathan for over 10 years. Jonathan is actually the reason I'm doing comics, because I had, a regular day job. I never even tried to break in on my own. And Jonathan's the one who encouraged me and then helped me get into comics. He by help me, he actually took me to the DC offices in New
Oh, wow.
York before they moved. And we speak on the phone for over 10 years. Again, every single day, I speak with Jonathan way more than I speak with my wife. So to the point that we're now, like, collaborating on this, and it's something that we've been gestating for quite a while. I don't think it's that common in comic
Mhm.
books a lot of times, because I said earlier that I got into comic books to be an inker because of the collaboration. It has never been as cooperative, like collaborating as much as what we're doing now, because, again, for the amount of years that we've been speaking about all of this. So, just a shout out to Jonathan as well for all of this and what we're doing together right now.
Love it. Love it. Love the positive collaborations and definitely folks that take that kind of time and invest. So, and thank you again for the time. Thanks for taking some time, and may the storytelling continue.